Welcome back, and thank you for joining me in this quiet space. Settle into a comfortable spot, take a deep breath, and let your mind gently wander. Tonight, we step into the grim and lonely world of a medieval executioner. Imagine the weight of the heavy axe, the tense silence before the final act, and the burden carried by those tasked with delivering death. We'll softly explore why surviving even a single day in this brutal role was nearly impossible, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. If these peaceful history journeys bring you calm, please like, subscribe, and share where you're listening from. Now, let's quietly begin. Imagine waking up before the first light of dawn, your body heavy with the knowledge of what the day will demand. You live in a time when justice is brutal and swift, and you have a role that sets you apart from everyone else in the village. You are the executioner, the man whose hands carry both power and fear, whose presence chills even the bravest souls. The job is not just about wielding an axe or lighting a pyre. It is about embodying a dark symbol, a figure cast out by society, yet indispensable to it. To be an executioner in the medieval world meant a life marked by isolation, moral complexity, and the haunting weight of death. Your mornings begin in solitude, often far from the bustling village life that continues unaware of the grim tasks you will face. You prepare yourself mentally and physically, knowing that you will soon confront human suffering in its rawest form. The tools of your trade, heavy axes, sharp swords, ropes for hanging, are always close, objects both familiar and terrible. The weight of these instruments is nothing compared to the burden they represent. You are not just an instrument of the law, you are its living embodiment, the final arbiter of life and death. This duality shapes your existence, forcing you to navigate a world that views you with a mixture of fear, revulsion, and grudging respect. The people around you keep their distance, their eyes avoiding yours in the marketplace and on the streets. Children are warned not to speak to you, and women cross the road when you pass by. You carry a social stigma heavier than any chain, a mark that isolates you from community and kin. Yet paradoxically, your role is essential. Without you, justice cannot be enforced, and order breaks down. This isolation creates a strange and lonely existence, one where you are never quite part of the society you serve. It is a life on the margins, caught between necessity and exclusion. Fear is a constant companion, not only the fear you inspire in others, but the fear that lives within you. The knowledge that at any moment you may be called to take a life, to end suffering, to serve a justice that is often harsh and uncompromising. Each execution is a confrontation with mortality and morality. The faces of those condemned linger in your mind long after the crowds have dispersed and the bodies are removed. The weight of their final moments, their cries and their pleas can haunt you in the silence of night. It is a burden few can bear, a psychological toll that shapes your thoughts and dreams. The act of execution itself is brutal and exacting. Whether it is beheading with a heavy axe, hanging from a gallows, or the slow agony of burning at the stake, the process is fraught with tension and gravity. You must be precise, both for the sake of the condemned and to fulfill your duty efficiently. A botched execution is a disaster, bringing shame and sometimes danger upon you. The crowd watches with a mix of anticipation and dread, their emotions a volatile backdrop to the grim spectacle. You stand at the center of this storm, a figure of power and vulnerability, executing justice under the unforgiving gaze of society. Your work does not end with the execution. You are responsible for the aftermath, the disposal of bodies, the cleaning of tools, the quiet moments of reflection. In these times, solitude deepens, and the reality of your role sinks in fully. You grapple with the humanity of your task and the necessity imposed upon you by law and custom. It is a complex moral landscape where duty and conscience often clash. You may find yourself questioning the fairness of sentences, the nature of justice, and your place within this harsh system. Yet the demands of your role leave little room for doubt in public. You must appear resolute and unyielding. Despite the grimness, your role carries a strange form of power. You hold life and death in your hands, wielding an authority that even nobles respect and fear. Your presence can quell unrest, your judgment final. This power, however, is a double-edged sword. It isolates you, marking you as both indispensable and outcast. Relationships are strained or impossible, and your name may be whispered with a mixture of fear and fascination. The balance between power and alienation is delicate, shaping the contours of your daily life. The community's relationship with you is complicated. On one hand, you are necessary, the executioner is the enforcer of order, the visible hand of justice. On the other hand, you are shunned, a reminder of death and the darker aspects of human society. Rituals and superstitions often surround your role. You may be believed to carry a curse or to be touched by evil. These beliefs add layers of mystery and dread, further deepening your isolation. Your life is one lived in the shadows where the light of normalcy rarely reaches. In the quiet moments, away from the crowds and the spectacle, you face your own reflections and fears. The faces of those you have executed haunt your dreams. The weight of what you do presses on your heart and mind. The solitude can be a refuge but also a prison, trapping you in thoughts that others cannot share or understand. It is a life of contradictions, power and loneliness, necessity and revulsion, justice and death. To live a day as a medieval executioner is to live with a profound awareness of mortality and morality. It is a role that few would choose willingly, demanding strength of body, mind, and spirit. The blood you spill is a reminder of the fragility of life and the heavy cost of justice in a brutal world. The fear you evoke protects order but isolates you from the very society you serve. It is a life marked by silence and shadow, by the unyielding presence of death and the complex burden of duty. And so, as the day unfolds, you prepare once more to face the grim tasks ahead. The village stirs to life around you, unaware or unwilling to confront the true weight of your role. You take up your tools, steady your nerves, and step into the light, a figure both feared and necessary, living on the edge of life and death. This is the world of the medieval executioner, a world of blood, fear, and isolation, where survival is as much about navigating the shadows as wielding the axe. The role of a medieval executioner carried with it a weight far heavier than the tools they wielded. The burden was not just the physical act of carrying out sentences, but the psychological and social consequences that followed. Imagine living in a world where your identity was inseparable from death, where your presence was both feared and shunned, and where every day was a confrontation with human suffering. Being an executioner meant embodying the community's darkest fears and its harshest justice, and this constant tension shaped every moment of your existence. You would wake each morning knowing that before the day's end, you might witness the final breath of a condemned soul, a fact that few could bear without feeling the deep weight of despair and isolation. Social isolation was one of the most profound aspects of life as an executioner. Villagers kept their distance, and your interactions were often limited to brief, wary exchanges. Children were told to avoid you, and neighbors would cross the street rather than meet your gaze. This ostracism extended beyond mere avoidance. It was an almost physical barrier, cutting you off from the warmth of community and companionship. The executioner was a living symbol of death, and death was something people feared and wanted to keep at bay. Despite your crucial role in maintaining order and enforcing justice, you were branded with a stigma so deep it defined your very existence. You lived on the margins, essential yet excluded, powerful yet profoundly lonely. The psychological toll of your work was immense. Carrying out executions meant witnessing human pain and mortality daily. Each condemned person brought their own story, their own fears and regrets. As you prepared for an execution, you might see the flash of desperation or resignation in their eyes, hear the tremble in their voices, and feel the weight of their final moments. These encounters were not just professional duties, they were deeply human experiences that could haunt your thoughts long after the crowd had dispersed and the bodies had been taken away. It is hard to imagine the emotional resilience required to perform these acts repeatedly without being broken by the memories. The nature of the executions themselves varied, each method demanding different skills and carrying its own risks. Beheadings required precision and strength, a single clean strike, to end a life swiftly. Hanging demanded careful calculation to ensure the condemned's death was as quick as possible, though often the process was cruel and prolonged. Burning at the stake was a public spectacle of terror and agony, intended to serve as a warning to others, but also inflicting unbearable suffering. Each method carried with it an atmosphere thick with tension, as the executioner stood at the center of a charged moment where law, mortality, and spectacle collided. The responsibility to carry out the sentence properly was immense, for any mistake could bring disgrace, danger, or even retaliation. The crowds that gathered for executions were complex and unpredictable. For many, these events were grim but necessary affirmations of justice. They reinforced social order and communal norms, showing that wrongdoing would not be tolerated. Yet the atmosphere was also charged with a mix of fear, curiosity, and sometimes even excitement. The executioner had to navigate this volatile environment, maintaining authority while being acutely aware of the crowd's shifting emotions. You were the focus of their gaze, the living symbol of the law's ultimate power. Yet you were also vulnerable to their resentment and fear. This precarious position demanded constant vigilance and control. Superstition and ritual often surrounded your role, adding layers of meaning and complexity to an already difficult life. People believed that executioners were touched by evil or cursed, that they carried the taint of death on their hands. These beliefs contributed to your social isolation, but also gave your role a mysterious and feared aura. Some thought you possessed supernatural powers, or that your presence could ward off evil spirits. Others believed that your job brought bad luck, leading to a mix of reverence and dread. These contradictions reflected the deep ambivalence communities felt toward death and those who wielded it, placing you at the intersection of fear, fascination, and rejection. The relationship between the executioner and the condemned was fraught with tension and complexity. While you represented the instrument of death, there was often a shared humanity in those final moments. Some condemned sought comfort or mercy, while others confronted death with defiance or despair. You might hear their last words, prayers, or pleas, each a poignant reminder of life's fragility. In rare cases, condemned individuals showed forgiveness or gratitude, recognizing the executioner's grim duty. These interactions could be haunting or even redemptive, revealing the deep emotional currents beneath the surface of the grim spectacle. Outside of your public role, life was marked by routine and solitude. Your days involved not only preparing for executions, but also maintaining your tools, tending to the spaces where sentences were carried out, and navigating the practicalities of a life set apart. The steady rhythm of these tasks contrasted sharply with the extraordinary nature of your work. Yet, even in mundane moments, the shadow of your role loomed large, shaping your relationships, your thoughts, and your sense of self. The loneliness was profound, as few could truly understand the burdens you carried or the moral complexities you faced. Family life for an executioner was often fraught with difficulties. The social stigma extended to your loved ones, who might face ostracism or discrimination because of their association with you. Marriages could be strained, and children might suffer exclusion or bullying. Balancing the demands of your public role with the desire for personal connection was a constant challenge. Some executioners lived apart from their communities, or found solace in close-knit families who stood by them despite the challenges. The tension between public duty and private life was a defining feature of your existence, shaping how you navigated the world. Despite the hardships, executioners often developed a strong sense of identity tied to their role. You were a guardian of order, a necessary force in a world governed by harsh laws and brutal consequences. Your work, while reviled, was essential to the functioning of society, and this paradox created a complex psychological landscape. Some found a grim pride in their skill and professionalism, in the ability to carry out their duties with precision and resolve. Others wrestled with doubt, guilt, or despair, haunted by the human cost of their work. This inner conflict was a silent burden that few could share openly. The legacy of the medieval executioner is one of contradiction, both feared and necessary, shunned and respected, powerful and isolated. To live a day in their shoes is to confront the darkest aspects of justice and humanity, to feel the heavy weight of life and death resting on your shoulders. It is to navigate a world where your existence is both indispensable and deeply misunderstood. The blood spilled, the fear borne, and the solitude endured paint a picture of a life few would choose, yet one that shaped the course of history in profound ways. As the day unfolds and the shadows lengthen, you prepare to face the inevitable once more. The village continues unaware or unwilling to confront the truth of your role, and you steady yourself to carry out the grim tasks ahead. This is the life of the medieval executioner, a world defined by blood, fear, and isolation, where survival means mastering both the axe and the shadows. The life of a medieval executioner was a constant battle not only with the physical demands of the role, but also with the mental and emotional strain that came with it. Every execution weighed heavily on your conscience, and the memories of those final moments could linger for years. Imagine the internal struggle of preparing to take a life, knowing that your hands would end someone's story forever. This was not a task undertaken lightly. The executioner had to steel himself against the natural compassion that arises when facing suffering, and yet maintain enough detachment to perform his duty without hesitation. It was a delicate balance, one that could erode a person's sense of self if not carefully managed. Your days were filled with preparation, sharpening blades, maintaining equipment, and rehearsing the mechanics of your grim work. Precision was essential, not only for the sake of the condemned, but also to uphold your reputation. A poorly executed sentence could lead to public outrage or even personal danger. You carried the knowledge that the outcome of an execution rested largely on your skill and composure. The pressure was immense, as any mistake could turn a solemn moment into a spectacle of pain and failure. This responsibility demanded a focus and professionalism that few outside your role could appreciate. The psychological toll extended beyond the act itself. You were often haunted by the faces of those you had executed, their final expressions etched into your memory. In quiet moments, you might relive their last words, their pleas for mercy or cries of defiance. These memories could become nightmares, invading your sleep and shadowing your waking hours. The executioner's mind was a battleground of conflicting emotions, guilt, duty, fear, and sometimes a desperate hope for redemption. The weight of death pressed on your soul, making loneliness and isolation even more profound. Socially, you existed in a liminal space. You were necessary to the community, yet excluded from its warmth. Villagers regarded you with a mixture of fear and fascination, and their attitudes could shift unpredictably. At times, you might sense a grudging respect for the burden you carried, but more often you were met with suspicion or outright hostility. The stigma attached to your profession extended to your family, who might face discrimination or isolation because of their association with you. This created additional layers of strain as you sought to protect those you cared about from the social fallout of your role. Your relationships were often limited and fraught with tension. Friendships were difficult to maintain when others feared your presence or misunderstood your work. Romantic relationships could be strained or impossible, as the shadow of your profession loomed large. The loneliness was not merely physical but emotional, a chasm between your experience and the world around you. You might find solace only in the rare company of others who understood the peculiar burdens you bore. This sense of separation could deepen the psychological wounds inflicted by your work, creating a cycle that was hard to break. Superstition and folklore added to the complex identity of the executioner. Many believed you carried a curse or that your touch brought bad luck. Tales circulated about executioners having unnatural strength or being in league with dark forces. These beliefs both heightened the fear surrounding you and reinforced your isolation. In some regions, executioners were thought to possess strange knowledge or powers, further complicating their social standing. This blend of myth and reality made your life one lived under constant scrutiny and suspicion, where even mundane actions might be misinterpreted through a lens of fear. The tools of your trade were both your burden and your identity. Your axe, sword, or noose was an extension of your will, instruments through which justice was meted out. Caring for these tools was a ritual in itself, a way to maintain control and readiness. You knew that the sharpness of your blade could spare a life from prolonged suffering or, if dull, could turn a duty into a disaster. The care and maintenance of your instruments were acts of respect for the gravity of your role. Yet these tools also symbolized the life and death power you wielded, a constant reminder of the irreversible nature of your work. The public spectacle of execution was a defining feature of your profession. Crowds gathered with a mixture of curiosity, fear, and sometimes morbid fascination. You stood at the center of these gatherings, performing a role that was both feared and necessary. The atmosphere was charged, emotions running high, as the condemned faced their fate. Your presence commanded attention and respect, but also suspicion and hatred. Balancing the need to maintain order with the unpredictable nature of the crowd was a daily challenge. You became a figure of authority, a visible symbol of law and consequence, even as you remained an outsider. Behind the scenes, the executioner often had a complex relationship with the judicial system and local authorities. You were employed by the state or the lord of the manor, tasked with carrying out sentences passed by judges or magistrates. This connection gave you a form of official status, but also tied you to political and social power structures that could be unstable. Your position depended on the favor of those in charge, making your job precarious. Changes in leadership, shifts in political alliances, or public opinion could affect your security and standing. Navigating these dynamics required not only skill with the axe, but also political acumen. Despite the grim nature of your work, there were moments of unexpected humanity. You might encounter condemned individuals who sought solace in last rites or expressions of repentance. Sometimes, you shared quiet moments with those facing death, offering a measure of comfort or dignity. These encounters could be profoundly affecting, reminding you of the fragile humanity beneath the role you played. They were brief respites from the harsh reality of your profession, moments that lingered in your memory as proof of your own compassion. The legacy of the medieval executioner is one of paradox. You were both feared and necessary, powerful and isolated, reviled and respected. Your life was marked by blood, fear, and solitude, yet also by an unspoken commitment to a role that was vital to societal order. To live as an executioner was to confront the stark realities of mortality and justice daily. It was a path few could follow and even fewer could endure without being changed forever. Your story is one of resilience amid darkness, a testament to the complexity of human nature and the burdens of duty. As the day comes to a close and the village returns to its quiet rhythm, you prepare to lay down your tools and face the solitude of the night. The weight of the day's work settles in your bones, and the memories of faces and voices echo in your mind. You are a figure cast out yet indispensable, living on the edge of society and mortality. This is the world of the medieval executioner, a world of blood, fear, isolation, and an unyielding sense of purpose that shapes every breath you take. The role of a medieval executioner was shrouded in contradictions. While you were the embodiment of justice and authority, you were also a figure of fear and isolation. Society depended on you to enforce the law, yet it shunned you, unwilling or unable to accept the human being behind the mask of death. This paradox defined your life and shaped your interactions with the world around you. Imagine navigating daily life burdened not only by the grim nature of your work, but also by the weight of social exclusion and misunderstanding. The loneliness you felt was profound, a silence imposed by both your role and the superstitions that surrounded it. Your family, if you had one, lived under the same shadow. Spouses, children, and relatives faced discrimination simply for being associated with you. Their social standing was often diminished, and opportunities that others took for granted might be denied. Weddings, markets, and festivals became arenas where whispered judgments followed your loved ones. You might have sought refuge within your home, but even there, the outside world's stigma intruded. Protecting your family from the fallout of your profession was an ongoing struggle, adding a layer of anxiety and sorrow to an already heavy burden. The psychological impact of your role was immense. Each execution was a confrontation not just with death, but with the complexities of justice and mercy. You might have questioned the fairness of the sentences you were ordered to carry out, or wrestled with doubts about the guilt of those condemned. Yet, your position left little room for personal judgment. Obedience was paramount. Over time, the emotional toll could manifest as numbness or detachment, a defense mechanism against the constant exposure to pain and suffering. But detachment came at a cost. It could erode your sense of self and your ability to connect with others. Physical dangers were also part of your life. While the tools you wielded were instruments of power, they could also turn against you. A miscalculated blow or a rope that did not function correctly could result in botched executions, bringing humiliation and risk. Occasionally, relatives or friends of the condemned might seek revenge, making threats or even attempting violence. You had to remain vigilant, aware that your role placed you in the crosshairs of anger and resentment. The life of an executioner was not only psychologically taxing but physically perilous. Your relationship with the law was complex. As an enforcer of justice, you were bound by legal codes and orders from authorities, yet you operated in a system where justice was often harsh and unforgiving. You became a living extension of the law's most extreme consequences. This position granted you a certain status and protection, but it also made you a tool of the state's power. Your role demanded absolute compliance, sometimes in situations where the morality of the sentence was questionable. This tension between duty and conscience was a defining feature of your existence. Superstition surrounded you like a dark cloud. People believed executioners possessed unnatural qualities or that they were cursed. Some thought your touch could bring misfortune, while others imagined you had secret knowledge of death and the afterlife. These beliefs heightened the mystery and fear that cloaked your profession. You might have found yourself the subject of rumors and stories, some designed to keep people away, others meant to explain your strange place in society. Living under the weight of such superstition added to the sense of alienation, making every interaction a potential challenge. Despite these hardships, executioners often developed a sense of identity and even pride in their work. You were uniquely skilled, entrusted with a responsibility that few could bear. The precision and care required to carry out executions correctly made your profession one of expertise. You might have found camaraderie among other executioners or those involved in the justice system, people who understood the unique pressures of the role. This shared experience provided a rare sense of belonging in a life otherwise marked by exclusion. The rituals surrounding executions were important to you and the community. You prepared your tools with care, understanding that the act itself was both a practical duty and a symbolic moment. The public nature of executions meant they were also performances, intended to reinforce social order and moral lessons. You played your part in this ritual, aware that your actions communicated messages about authority, justice, and the consequences of crime. This awareness added a solemn gravity to your work, transforming it into a ceremony that affected not only the condemned, but the entire community. The executioner's place in society was also tied to economics. You were often paid for your services, sometimes holding additional duties such as cleaning prisons or assisting in punishments. This income, while necessary, did not erase the social stigma you faced. Your profession was hereditary in some regions, passed down through families, binding generations to a life of paradoxical power and isolation. The economic aspect of your role underscored the complicated relationship between necessity and rejection that defined your existence. Your interactions with those condemned to death were moments of intense humanity amid the cruelty. You might have witnessed fear, regret, anger, or acceptance in their final hours. Sometimes, condemned individuals sought comfort or forgiveness, while others met their fate with defiance or silence. These encounters reminded you that beneath the role of executioner and condemned were human beings, each with a story and emotions. Such moments could be deeply affecting, leaving impressions that lasted long after the execution was over. Looking back on the life of a medieval executioner reveals a figure caught between worlds, a servant of justice, yet a social outcast, a wielder of death, yet a person burdened by morality and isolation. Your existence was defined by contradictions and complexities that few could comprehend. To walk in your shoes was to live constantly at the edge of society and life itself, balancing the demands of duty with the weight of human compassion. It was a life marked by blood, fear, solitude, and an unyielding commitment to a role that was both necessary and misunderstood. As the day ends and the village quiets, you lay down your tools and face the solitude of the night. The faces of the condemned linger in your mind, reminders of the heavy price paid for order and justice. You live in a world that needs you but fears you, a world where death is both a tool and a burden. This is the life of the medieval executioner, a life that few would choose, shaped by the harsh realities of justice and the profound human cost it exacts. The life of a medieval executioner was defined by a strange and often painful blend of power, duty, and profound loneliness. Each day carried the weight of an unimaginable responsibility, the power to end a life, the duty to uphold the law, and the loneliness that came from being shunned by the very community that depended on you. Imagine waking each morning with this burden heavy on your shoulders, knowing that your role cast a long shadow not just over your own existence, but over your family and all your relationships. The executioner was a figure both feared and essential, a living paradox whose life was shaped as much by isolation as by authority. Your mornings began early, often before the sun rose. Preparation was meticulous and somber. Your tools, axes, swords, ropes, were cleaned and sharpened with care, each one a symbol of the final justice you were about to deliver. The weight of the axe in your hands was not just physical, it was the embodiment of centuries of law, fear, and retribution. Every movement, every detail mattered. The stakes were as high as life itself. You had to be precise. A single slip could prolong agony or turn a solemn execution into a botched spectacle. Your skill was your shield and your curse. Social life was a difficult landscape to navigate. The stigma attached to your profession created invisible barriers between you and others. Villagers treated you with a mix of awe and suspicion. Children were warned not to come near you. Even those who recognized the necessity of your role could not bring themselves to fully accept you. Your family shared in this exclusion, carrying the burden of your social standing. Weddings, markets, and community gatherings were often spaces of subtle rejection and whispered rumors. The loneliness you felt was profound, an emotional exile from the warmth of ordinary human connection. Yet, despite the isolation, your role granted you a form of unique authority. You were the hand of the law in its most final form. Nobles, priests, and commoners alike deferred to your position, acknowledging the power you wielded. Your presence alone could quell unrest or intimidate those who might challenge order. This power was a double-edged sword. It protected you, but also marked you as a target of fear and resentment. Balancing this precarious status required a careful performance of strength and detachment. Psychologically, the executioner's work was exhausting. Witnessing death day after day, hearing the last words of the condemned, and carrying out sentences that ended lives took a deep toll on your spirit. You might have found yourself haunted by memories, reliving moments that no one else saw. The cries, the silence before the final blow, the faces filled with fear or defiance, all these stayed with you long after the crowds dispersed. To cope, some executioners developed emotional shields, distancing themselves from the humanity of their work. Others found small rituals or moments of reflection that helped them carry the weight. The nature of executions was harsh and varied. Beheadings required strength and precision, a swift and certain act meant to spare prolonged suffering. Hanging demanded careful calculation, with the goal of a quick death, yet often ended in prolonged agony. Burning at the stake was among the most terrifying and public punishments, designed not only to kill, but to send a clear message of deterrence. Each method came with its own challenges and required not only physical skill but emotional resolve. The executioner was the keeper of this knowledge, a professional whose expertise was both feared and respected. Public executions were communal events, drawing crowds from near and far. These gatherings were charged with a mix of emotions: fear, relief, curiosity, and sometimes morbid fascination. You stood at the center of this spectacle, a figure of authority and terror. The crowd's energy was unpredictable. It could be supportive, hostile, or dangerously volatile. Your ability to maintain control and carry out your duties amid this tension was crucial. You were a symbol of justice and mortality, a living reminder of the consequences of crime and defiance. Your relationship with the condemned was complex. You were the instrument of their fate, yet in those final moments, a shared humanity often emerged. Some faced death with resignation, others with fear or anger. You might have heard their last confessions, curses, prayers, or pleas for mercy. These encounters were brief, but deeply affecting, leaving impressions that lingered in your memory. The executioner's role was not merely mechanical but profoundly human, involving moments of compassion even within the grim framework of death. Beyond the executions, your life involved many practical duties. You maintained the gallows, cared for the prison, and sometimes participated in interrogations or punishments. Your skills extended beyond the blade to include the management of spaces associated with death and justice. This practical knowledge was essential to the functioning of law enforcement and community order. Yet these tasks also reinforced your isolation, binding you ever more tightly to the world of death and punishment. Economic realities shaped your life as well. The position of executioner was often hereditary, passed down through families who carried the burden across generations. Your income was tied to your services, but wealth did not erase social stigma. You might have been respected in some circles, but excluded in many others. The economic necessity of the role sometimes conflicted with the desire for a different life. The executioner's existence was a balancing act between survival, duty, and social exclusion. Over time, some executioners found ways to cope with the heavy demands of their profession. A few developed a dry humor or camaraderie with others in the justice system, creating pockets of connection in an otherwise lonely life. Others sought solace in faith or personal rituals that gave meaning to their work. These coping mechanisms were vital to maintaining mental health and resilience, yet the shadow of death and isolation remained a constant companion. The legacy of the medieval executioner is one of complexity and contradiction. You were a figure who wielded ultimate power, yet was deeply marginalized. Your work was necessary for the enforcement of law and order, but exacted a profound personal and social cost. To live as an executioner was to live at the crossroads of life and death, community and exile, duty and loneliness. Your story is a window into the darker aspects of justice and the human condition, a reminder of the burdens carried by those who stand between society and its gravest punishments. As the day draws to a close and the village quiets, you prepare to lay down your tools once more. The memories of faces and final moments echo in your mind, the weight of your role settling heavily on your soul. You live in a world that needs you but fears you, a world where your life is defined by blood, fear, and solitude. This is the life of the medieval executioner, a life few would choose, shaped by the relentless demands of justice and the profound costs it imposes. The life of a medieval executioner was marked not only by the act of carrying out death sentences, but also by the deep complexities and contradictions that surrounded the role. The executioner was simultaneously a figure of ultimate authority and profound social isolation. People depended on the executioner to enforce justice, yet at the same time they feared and shunned him. This tension defined every aspect of your existence. You lived in a world where your hands held the power to end life, but your heart carried the heavy weight of that responsibility. The emotional and psychological landscape was as treacherous as any physical challenge you faced. Each day began with the sobering knowledge that death was your companion. You prepared your tools meticulously, knowing that the lives you would encounter depended on your precision and resolve. The axe, the sword, the rope they were, more than instruments. They were symbols of your role in the harsh order of medieval justice. The care you took in maintaining these tools reflected your understanding of their importance. A clean, sharp blade could spare agony, while a dull one could turn an execution into a prolonged nightmare. Your professionalism was essential not only for the condemned, but also for your own survival and reputation. Despite the power vested in you, social interactions were fraught with difficulty. Villagers avoided eye contact, children were warned to stay away, and whispers followed you wherever you went. Your family shared in this stigma, facing exclusion and judgment because of their association with you. Everyday life became a negotiation between fulfilling your duty and coping with the social isolation that came with it. Invitations to communal events were rare, and when they did come, they often carried an undercurrent of unease or reluctance. Your presence was a constant reminder of death, and death was a reality many preferred not to confront. The psychological toll of your work was immense. Each execution was not just a task to be completed, but a moment heavy with emotion and reflection. You might see the fear, resignation, or anger in the condemned's eyes, hear their final words, and feel the weight of their humanity pressing upon you. Over time, these experiences could haunt your dreams and shadow your waking moments. Coping with this burden required mental fortitude. Some executioners developed emotional walls to protect themselves, while others sought solace in faith or companionship with those who understood their plight. The balance between detachment and compassion was delicate and vital. Public executions were complex social events, The crowd gathered not only to witness justice, but to experience a communal catharsis. There was relief in seeing order maintained, but also a fascination with the spectacle of death. You stood at the center of this charged atmosphere, a figure of authority and terror. The crowd's emotions were unpredictable. They could be supportive one moment and hostile the next. Your ability to manage this environment was crucial to maintaining peace and dignity during the proceedings. You were both performer and enforcer, carrying out a ritual that reinforced societal norms and the consequences of transgression. Your relationship with the condemned was nuanced. While you were the agent of their fate, moments of shared humanity often emerged. Some faced death with acceptance, others with defiance or fear. Their final moments were intensely personal, and your presence in those moments was a profound, if burdensome, connection to the fragility of life. These encounters could leave lasting impressions, reminding you that behind every sentence was a human story filled with complexity and emotion. Superstition surrounded your role and further complicated your life. People believed you were touched by evil or that you carried a curse. Some thought you had secret knowledge or powers related to death and the afterlife. These beliefs deepened the social divide, making your existence one of mystery and fear. You might have been the subject of rumors and folklore, which added layers of meaning to your daily life. Navigating these perceptions required resilience and a strong sense of self, as they shaped how others interacted with you and how you saw yourself. Your work extended beyond the execution itself. You maintained the gallows, cared for the condemned before their sentence, and sometimes assisted with punishments or interrogations. These responsibilities reinforced your place within the justice system, but also kept you deeply connected to the grim realities of punishment. The practical knowledge you gained was essential to the functioning of law and order, but also further isolated you from the rest of society. Your life was defined by these tasks, which bound you ever more tightly to the shadowy world of death. Economically, your position was often precarious. While you were paid for your services, the income did not compensate for the social costs. In some cases, the role was hereditary, passed down through families who bore the weight of stigma across generations. This hereditary aspect could provide a measure of stability, but also trapped families in a cycle of exclusion and marginalization. The economic reality of being an executioner highlighted the tension between necessity and rejection that characterized your life. Despite the hardships, some executioners found community and purpose. Bonds formed with others who shared the unique pressures of the role, creating pockets of understanding and support. These relationships provided relief from isolation and helped maintain mental health. Some executioners took pride in their work, seeing themselves as guardians of order and justice. This pride could be a source of strength, helping to counterbalance the darker aspects of their lives. The legacy of the medieval executioner is complex and multifaceted. You were a figure of ultimate power and profound loneliness, an essential part of society's justice system, yet deeply marginalized by it. Your life was marked by the constant presence of death and the heavy burden of responsibility. To live as an executioner was to confront the stark realities of mortality and justice every day, carrying a weight that few could understand. Your story is one of resilience amid darkness, a testament to the complexities of human nature and the demands of duty. As the day ends and the village grows quiet, you lay down your tools and reflect on the heavy price paid for order and justice. The memories of faces and final moments linger in your mind, a constant reminder of the profound cost of your role. You live in a world that needs you but fears you, a world defined by blood, solitude, and an unyielding commitment to duty. This is the life of the medieval executioner, a life shaped by the relentless demands of justice and the profound human cost it exacts. Life as a medieval executioner was not only defined by the physical acts of carrying out sentences, but also by the deep emotional and psychological complexities that accompanied the role. Each execution brought you face to face with death, human suffering, and the profound finality of justice. The weight of these moments stayed with you, shaping your thoughts and emotions long after the crowd had dispersed and the tools were cleaned. The role demanded a unique blend of detachment and empathy, a balance that was difficult to maintain in a world where your very identity was intertwined with death. Every day began with preparation not just of your tools, but of your mind and spirit. Sharpening the axe, oiling the rope, ensuring everything was ready was as much a ritual as a practical necessity. You understood that the precision and care you applied could mean the difference between a swift death and a prolonged agony. This responsibility made you acutely aware of the power and danger your hands held. The tools were extensions of your will, instruments through which the final act of law was carried out. Handling them demanded respect and focus, a reminder that every execution was both a duty and a solemn act. Socially, you lived on the edge of society. Though you performed a critical role, you were often regarded with suspicion, fear, and disdain. Villagers would avoid your gaze, whispering as you passed by, and children were warned not to approach. Your family shared this burden, facing ostracism and prejudice because of their association with you. This social isolation was one of the heaviest aspects of your life, creating barriers that few could cross. The executioner was a figure both essential and excluded, a paradox that shaped your daily interactions and sense of belonging. The psychological toll was relentless. Each execution left a mark on your soul. You would see the fear in the condemned's eyes, hear their last pleas, and feel the finality of their fate. These moments were deeply human, filled with emotion and meaning, and they could haunt you long after the act was done. To cope, some executioners built emotional walls, distancing themselves from the humanity of their work. Others sought comfort in faith or companionship, finding ways to navigate the emotional minefield of their profession. The struggle to balance duty and compassion was ongoing and often exhausting. Public executions were dramatic and intense events. Crowds gathered with a mix of emotions: fear, relief, curiosity, and sometimes morbid fascination. You stood at the center of this charged atmosphere, a figure of authority and dread. Managing the crowd's volatile energy required skill and composure. You had to maintain order while carrying out a grim task under the watchful eyes of many. The execution was both a practical act and a ritual, reinforcing social norms and the consequences of crime. Your role was crucial in this public theater of justice. Your relationship with the condemned was complex and varied. In those final moments, you might witness resignation, defiance, fear, or hope. The condemned's last words could be prayers, curses, or pleas for mercy. These encounters revealed the fragile humanity beneath the grim reality of punishment. Sometimes, a moment of shared understanding or compassion emerged, fleeting but profound. These experiences underscored the emotional depth of your work, reminding you that beneath the role of executioner and condemned were human lives and stories. Superstition and folklore added another layer to your existence. Many believed executioners were cursed or possessed dark powers. You were often the subject of rumors and tales that painted you as otherworldly or ominous. These beliefs heightened your social isolation but also added to the aura of mystery surrounding your role. Navigating these perceptions required resilience and self-awareness as they shaped how others viewed and interacted with you. The executioner was a figure caught between fear, reverence, and misunderstanding. Beyond the executions themselves, you had responsibilities related to the maintenance of the gallows, the care of prisoners, and sometimes participation in other punishments or interrogations. These duties reinforced your central role in the justice system and connected you deeply to the machinery of law and order. Yet, they also tied you more closely to the grim realities of punishment, further separating you from ordinary life. Your daily routine was shaped by these tasks, which underscored the harshness and solemnity of your position. Economic factors influenced your life and the lives of your family. The position of executioner was sometimes hereditary, passed from one generation to the next, binding families to a life of social stigma and isolation. While you earned income for your services, the financial benefits rarely offset the social costs. Your family might face limited opportunities, and your name could carry a mark that affected marriages, business, and social standing. The economic reality of your role reflected the broader tension between necessity and rejection that defined your existence. Despite the challenges, some executioners found moments of community and purpose, bonds formed among those who shared the unique pressures of the profession, providing support and understanding. These connections offered relief from isolation and helped maintain mental and emotional health. Pride in professional skill and commitment to duty sometimes provided a sense of identity and strength amid adversity. This complex interplay of pride and hardship shaped the inner life of many executioners. The legacy of the medieval executioner is one of paradox and complexity. You were both a powerful agent of the law and a marginalized figure within society. Your life was marked by proximity to death, social exclusion, and the heavy burden of responsibility. To live as an executioner was to inhabit a world defined by stark contrasts between power and vulnerability, duty and isolation, life and death. Your story reveals the multifaceted nature of justice and the human cost embedded within it. As night falls and the village quiets, you lay down your tools and reflect on the day's work. The faces of the condemned linger in your mind, reminders of the profound role you play in the cycle of justice and mortality. You live in a world that needs you but fears you, where your existence is defined by blood, solitude, and an unwavering commitment to a harsh but essential duty. This is the life of the medieval executioner, a life few understand, marked by resilience amid darkness and the unending weight of death. The medieval executioner lived a life of paradoxes, caught between the public gaze and private solitude. His profession placed him at the grim center of justice, yet it also forced him into a social exile few could endure. The people around him both depended on and feared him, recognizing his necessity while simultaneously shunning his presence. This complex dynamic shaped every moment of his existence, influencing not just his daily routines, but the deepest corners of his mind and heart. To truly understand the life of an executioner is to peer into a world where power and isolation, duty and despair intertwined in an unbreakable grip. The executioner's day began with a ritual of preparation that went beyond mere practicality. His tools, axes, swords, ropes, were more than instruments of death. They were sacred objects demanding reverence and care. The act of sharpening a blade or inspecting a noose was a moment of solemnity, a chance to steel oneself for the grim tasks ahead. Each tool carried a history of lives ended and justice served, reminders of the weight of responsibility resting in the executioner's hands. This ritual was a psychological armor, a way to separate the man from the act and to face the inevitability of death with grim determination. Social isolation was one of the harshest realities of the executioner's life. Despite the respect for his role, villagers kept their distance, their eyes filled with suspicion or outright fear. Children were taught to avoid him. Whispers followed him through marketplaces, and his family bore the burden of his profession. This stigma was a form of social exile, a barrier that cut off the executioner from the warmth of community life. Invitations to celebrations were rare, and even everyday conversations were tinged with unease. The executioner existed on the margins, essential yet rejected, a living reminder of mortality that few wished to confront. The psychological toll of his work was profound. Witnessing death day after day, hearing the last words of the condemned, and carrying out sentences that ended lives left marks on his soul. Memories of the condemned, their fears, defiance, and regrets could haunt his dreams and shadow his waking hours. To survive this onslaught of human suffering, many executioners developed emotional defenses, distancing themselves from the humanity of their work. Others found solace in faith, or the companionship of those who understood their unique plight. The struggle to balance duty with compassion was an ongoing battle, one that shaped the executioner's inner life as much as his outward actions. Public executions were more than mere punishment. They were communal rituals that reinforced social order and collective values. Crowds gathered with a mix of emotions, fear, relief, curiosity, and sometimes morbid fascination. The executioner stood at the center of this charged atmosphere, a figure embodying law, mortality, and justice. Managing the crowd, maintaining order, and carrying out his duty required not just physical skill, but psychological resilience. The executioner was both a performer and a servant of the law, playing a role that was as much about spectacle as it was about justice. His relationship with the condemned was complex and deeply human. In those final moments, he might witness a range of emotions from resignation and fear to defiance and despair. The condemned's last words could be prayers, curses, or pleas for mercy, each revealing a glimpse of their humanity. These encounters reminded the executioner of the fragile line between life and death and underscored the emotional depth of his role. Though his duty was to carry out sentences without question, moments of shared humanity often pierced the grim exterior, leaving lasting impressions. Superstition and folklore surrounded the executioner, adding layers of mystery and fear to his existence. Many believed he was cursed or possessed dark powers, and rumors painted him as a figure both feared and misunderstood. These beliefs deepened his social isolation and colored how others interacted with him. Tales of executioners having unnatural strength or secret knowledge of death circulated widely, contributing to his enigmatic and sometimes frightening reputation. Living under the weight of these myths required a strong sense of self and a resilience that few could muster. Beyond the executions, the executioner's duties extended to maintaining the gallows, overseeing prisoners, and sometimes assisting in other punishments or interrogations. These responsibilities reinforced his central role in the justice system and kept him closely tied to the mechanisms of law and order. Yet, they also entrenched his position on the fringes of society, continually reminding him of the harsh realities of punishment and mortality. His daily life was a blend of routine and ritual, marked by tasks that underscored the solemnity and severity of his profession. Economic realities shaped the executioner's life and those of his family. Often, the role was hereditary, passed down through generations who bore the social stigma alongside the responsibilities. While the position provided a livelihood, the financial rewards seldom compensated for the social costs. Families of executioners faced limited opportunities, discrimination, and social exclusion. This economic and social entrapment created a cycle that was difficult to break, binding generations to a life marked by paradoxical respect and rejection. Despite the hardships, executioners sometimes found moments of community and identity. Bonds with others in the justice system or fellow executioners offered rare solace and understanding. These relationships helped alleviate isolation and fostered a sense of belonging. Pride in one's skill and commitment to duty could also provide strength, allowing the executioner to find meaning amid the darkness. This complex interplay of pride, hardship, and resilience shaped the emotional landscape of many who lived this difficult life. The legacy of the medieval executioner is one of contradictions and complexity. He was a symbol of ultimate power and profound loneliness, a necessary part of justice and a social outcast. His existence was defined by constant proximity to death, the heavy burden of responsibility, and the intricate balance between duty and humanity. To live as an executioner was to inhabit a world of stark contrasts, where authority and vulnerability, life and death, compassion and detachment coexisted in uneasy tension. As night falls and the village quiets, The executioner lays down his tools and reflects on the day's work. The faces of the condemned linger in his mind, reminders of the profound cost of order and justice. He lives in a world that needs him but fears him, where his life is marked by blood, solitude, and an unyielding commitment to a harsh but essential duty. This is the life of the medieval executioner, a life shaped by relentless demands, profound costs, and a resilience that few can truly comprehend. The life of a medieval executioner was shaped not only by the brutal duties of the job, but also by the intricate social and psychological realities that came with such a role. Each day was a test of endurance and fortitude, as the executioner faced not only the physical tasks demanded by his position, but also the invisible burdens of isolation, fear, and a profound moral complexity. Imagine the difficulty of balancing the need to perform a grim duty with the ever-present weight of conscience, knowing that your actions would forever alter lives, including your own. This was a life lived in the shadows of death and judgment, with little room for rest or reprieve. Executioners were often caught in a paradoxical position. They were essential to maintaining law and order, yet they were among the most socially marginalized figures in their communities. Villagers avoided them, whispered behind their backs, and sometimes openly showed disdain. Children were warned not to approach, and even family members felt the strain of the executioner's reputation. This social exclusion created a persistent loneliness that was difficult to escape. The executioner was both a servant of justice and a living reminder of mortality, a figure who was necessary yet feared and shunned. This paradox shaped his identity and interactions in profound ways. The psychological impact of witnessing death daily was immense. Executioners bore witness to the final moments of countless individuals, each with their own stories, regrets, and fears. The faces of the condemned, the sound of their last words, and the weight of their fate lingered long after the crowd had dispersed. These memories could become haunting, invading sleep and shadowing waking thoughts. To cope, many executioners developed emotional defenses, creating a barrier between themselves and the humanity of their work. Others found solace in faith or the camaraderie of those who understood their unique burden. The struggle to balance detachment and empathy was a constant and exhausting challenge. Physically, the job demanded strength, precision, and stamina. The tools of the trade axes, swords, ropes were extensions of the executioner's skill and responsibility. Maintaining these instruments required care and respect, for a well-prepared tool could ensure a swift and merciful death, while a dull blade could prolong suffering and invite disaster. Each execution was a moment of intense focus and discipline, a test of the executioner's professionalism. A botched execution could damage not only the condemned's dignity, but also the executioner's reputation and safety. The pressure to perform flawlessly was relentless. Public executions were complex social rituals. Crowds gathered with a mix of fear, curiosity, relief, and sometimes a morbid fascination. The executioner stood at the center of this spectacle, embodying the law's ultimate power. Managing the crowd's emotions and maintaining order was a critical aspect of the role. The execution was both a punishment and a performance designed to reinforce societal norms and deter crime. The executioner was a key figure in this communal act, balancing authority with the unpredictability of public sentiment. The relationship between executioner and condemned was deeply human and varied. In those final moments, the executioner often encountered a range of emotions from resignation and fear to anger and defiance. The condemned's last words might be prayers, curses, or pleas for forgiveness, each revealing their vulnerability and humanity. These encounters could be profoundly affecting, reminding the executioner of the fragility of life and the profound nature of his task. While the role demanded detachment, moments of compassion and understanding were inevitable and lingered long in memory. Superstition surrounded the executioner, shaping how others perceived and treated him. Many believed executioners were cursed or possessed special powers related to death. Rumors and legends painted them as figures both feared and misunderstood, adding layers of mystery and isolation. These beliefs heightened social exclusion, but also gave the executioner a unique, if burdensome, status. Living under the weight of such myths required resilience and a strong sense of self, as the executioner navigated a world where fact and fiction blurred. Beyond carrying out sentences, executioners had additional responsibilities that tied them deeply to the justice system. They maintained the gallows, cared for prisoners awaiting their fate, and sometimes assisted with interrogations or other forms of punishment. These duties reinforced the executioner's central role in law enforcement, but also anchored him further in a world dominated by punishment and mortality. Daily life was a mix of routine tasks and solemn rituals, underscoring the gravity and isolation of the profession. Economically, the role was often a double-edged sword. While executioners earned a living, the social stigma attached to their position limited opportunities for their families. In many cases, the profession was hereditary, passed down through generations who bore both the burden and the benefits. This familial legacy created a cycle of exclusion and duty that was difficult to break. The financial rewards seldom compensated for the social and emotional costs, making the executioner's life one of complex trade-offs. Despite these challenges, some executioners found moments of connection and purpose. Bonds formed with others who understood the unique pressures of the job provided support and relief from isolation. Pride in professional skill and commitment to duty offered a sense of identity amid hardship. These aspects brought light into an otherwise dark and lonely existence, illustrating the resilience of those who lived this difficult life. The legacy of the medieval executioner is one of contradictions, powerful yet marginalized, necessary yet feared, strong yet vulnerable. His life was defined by the relentless presence of death and the heavy weight of responsibility. To live as an executioner was to confront the stark realities of justice and mortality every day. This story reveals the complexities of human nature and the burdens carried by those tasked with the harshest aspects of law enforcement. As the day ends and the village quiets, the executioner lays down his tools and contemplates the faces of those whose lives he has ended. These memories are a constant reminder of the profound cost of order and justice. He lives in a world that needs him but fears him, where his existence is marked by blood, solitude, and an unyielding commitment to a difficult and essential duty. This is the life of the medieval executioner, a life few understand, and even fewer could endure, without being forever changed. The life of a medieval executioner was one of profound contradictions, immense responsibility, and deep isolation. As the final chapter in this story unfolds, it becomes clear that this was not merely a profession, but a burden that shaped every aspect of a man's existence. The executioner stood at the crossroads of life and death, justice and fear, power and loneliness. He was a figure essential to the social order, yet shunned by the very community that depended on him. His story is a testament to the human capacity to endure in the face of harsh realities and to navigate a path defined by duty and sacrifice. Throughout his life, the executioner grappled with the complex emotions that came with ending lives. Each sentence carried the weight of finality, and the memories of those final moments lingered long after the crowd dispersed. Faces filled with fear, defiance, regret, or resignation became etched in his mind, haunting him in quiet moments. Balancing the need for detachment with the unavoidable presence of empathy was an ongoing struggle. This emotional complexity is perhaps the most humanizing aspect of the executioner's role, revealing a man caught between the demands of his duty and the depths of his conscience. Socially, the executioner lived on the margins, both necessary and excluded. The stigma surrounding his profession isolated him and his family, creating barriers that were difficult to overcome. Villagers avoided him, whispered about him, and often regarded him with a mixture of fear and suspicion. Despite this, the executioner held a unique position of authority and power, embodying the law's most final consequences. This paradox defined his relationships and daily interactions, shaping a life that was both connected to and separate from the community he served. The rituals and routines of the executioner's life provided structure amid the chaos of death and judgment. From the meticulous care of his tools to the solemnity of public executions, these practices reinforced the gravity of his work. The executioner was not merely a functionary, but a keeper of rituals that communicated societal values and the consequences of transgression. These moments were heavy with symbolism and significance, underscoring the executioner's role as both an enforcer and a participant in a larger social order. Despite the hardships, the executioner found moments of meaning and even pride in his profession. His skill and professionalism were essential to carrying out sentences with dignity and precision. Bonds formed with others who understood the unique pressures of the role provided rare relief from isolation. Pride in fulfilling a difficult but necessary duty offered strength amid the loneliness and stigma. These aspects illustrate the resilience and complexity of those who lived as executioners. The executioner's legacy is one of complexity and humanity. He was a figure who wielded great power yet bore great burdens, living a life defined by contrasts. His story challenges simplistic notions of good and evil, justice and cruelty. It invites reflection on the nature of punishment, the costs of law enforcement, and the human capacity to endure difficult roles. The executioner was both a product of his time and a timeless symbol of the tensions inherent in justice and mortality. As his days drew to a close, the executioner would lay down his tools and face the solitude of night. The memories of those he had executed would remain a haunting testament to the price of order and justice. He lived in a world that needed him but feared him, a world marked by blood, solitude, and unwavering duty. His life was a profound journey through the shadows of society and the human soul. In remembering the medieval executioner, we honor a story often overlooked, one of sacrifice, resilience, and the heavy costs of justice. His life reminds us that behind the grim tasks were human beings grappling with profound moral and emotional challenges. This story closes not on a note of despair, but with recognition of the complexity of justice and the enduring strength required to carry out such a burden. The executioner's tale is a testament to the human spirit's capacity to endure, to fulfill difficult roles, and to navigate the delicate balance between life and death with courage and resolve. You awake to the heavy clang of iron gates being sealed, the thick stone walls around you trapping the cold, damp air that clings to your skin. The flickering light of a single torch dances on the rough surfaces, casting shadows that twist like specters in the dark. The smell is oppressive mixes of sweat, fear, and something metallic, like old blood. You realize you are not alone. Muffled sobs and whispered prayers echo through the narrow corridors. This is no ordinary prison. It is a chamber of fear and judgment, a place where hope withers beneath the weight of the Inquisition. You sit trembling on the hard wooden bench, every muscle tense, wondering what fate awaits you in this grim world ruled by suspicion and pain. The Inquisition is more than just a tribunal. It is a force that thrives on terror and control. Its agents are feared throughout the land, wielding power not only through law, but through the very art of torture and public spectacle. The accusation of heresy here is a death sentence in all but name, and confessions, whether true or forced, are the currency that fuels their authority. You remember the hushed warnings whispered in your village, tales of neighbors dragged away in the dead of night, never to return? They say that once accused, innocence means nothing. The Inquisition's machinery grinds relentlessly, and resistance only invites greater cruelty. Your thoughts drift back to the moment you were taken, the knock at your door, the stern faces of men cloaked in black robes, their eyes cold and unyielding. They spoke of sins and blasphemies, of secret meetings and forbidden books, none of which you recall. Fear clenched your heart as you were dragged through the town square, where curious eyes peered from behind shutters and doorways. The whispered rumors followed you, words like witch, heretic, devil's servant. The crowd's silence was thick with judgment, and you felt the weight of countless gazes upon you, each one a blade sharper than any sword. Inside the prison, time loses meaning. Days blur into nights as you are shuffled from one cell to another, each colder and darker than the last. The guards are harsh, their faces void of compassion. Food is sparse and meager. barely enough to keep your strength from fading completely. Sleep is a fleeting luxury, interrupted by the constant noise, the distant cries of others, the harsh commands barked through iron bars, the ominous footsteps of inquisitors preparing for their grim work. Your mind races, grasping for any fragment of hope or escape, but the walls close in tighter with every passing hour. When the inquisitors arrive, they bring with them an array of instruments designed not just to inflict pain, but to break the spirit. The rack, the Iron Maiden, thumbscrews, and countless other devices lurk in shadowed corners, each with a dark history and a terrible purpose. They are tools of confession, twisted artistry meant to elicit compliance through agony. You hear the screams of those who have gone before, a haunting symphony that chills you to your core. The inquisitors themselves are skilled in the language of fear, speaking calmly even as they command torment. Their presence is a reminder that mercy is not part of their vocabulary. Confession is the ultimate goal. Whether the accused is guilty or innocent matters little. What counts is the extraction of words that justify the Inquisition's grip on power. The accused are forced to name accomplices, reveal secrets, and renounce beliefs, all under threat of unbearable pain. The line between truth and falsehood blurs, as desperation drives men and women to say anything to end their suffering. The inquisitors record these confessions meticulously, turning them into public displays meant to warn and terrify the populace. The spectacle of punishment serves as a grim theater of control, where fear is the currency and obedience the desired outcome. You wonder what will happen to you. Will you endure the torments without breaking? Will you be forced to betray friends, family, and your own conscience? The uncertainty is a torment in itself. You clutch your hands tightly, feeling the rough rope bite into your wrists, a tangible reminder of your helplessness. Every sound, every shadow, seems to carry threat. The days stretch endlessly, each one a trial of endurance and faith. Your mind drifts between memories of a freer time and the grim reality before you. Hope flickers like a dying flame, fragile but unyielding. Outside these walls, life continues, though forever changed by the fear the Inquisition spreads. Villages whisper warnings and prayers. Neighbors watch one another with suspicion, and the shadow of accusation hangs over all. The Church's power extends beyond faith, reaching into the very fabric of daily life, twisting it with fear and control. The Inquisition does not simply punish, it transforms society into a place where trust is fragile and freedom is a distant dream. The grip of terror tightens, and even the strongest souls can falter. As night falls once more, you lie on the cold stone floor, the echo of distant cries a cruel lullaby. Your body aches, your spirit trembles, but somewhere deep within, a spark of defiance remains. The Inquisition seeks to extinguish that flame, to bend you to its will. Yet you hold onto the fragile hope that beyond these walls, beyond the pain and fear, there is a world still worth fighting for, a world where justice and mercy can exist beyond the shadows. Until then, you wait, trembling but unbroken, a prisoner of fear and faith caught in the cruel machinery of the Inquisition. The stone walls around you seem to close in tighter as the days stretch endlessly, the air thick with despair and the scent of damp decay. Every moment in this prison is filled with a lingering tension, a quiet dread that seeps into your bones. You feel the cold bite of the iron shackles around your wrists and ankles, their unforgiving grasp a constant reminder of your helplessness. The days blend into nights, and nights into days, each one blurring together in a haze of fear and uncertainty. You lie on the hard wooden bench, your back aching and your mind racing, trying to hold onto fragments of hope that slip away like shadows at dawn. Voices echo through the corridor, some pleading, others broken by pain or madness. You listen closely, trying to glean what you can from the distant sounds. The stories, whispered in these halls, are chilling. Tales of friends and strangers alike who have faced the Inquisitor's judgment. Some have confessed quickly, their voices trembling under the weight of torture. Others have resisted, only to break under the relentless pressure. The fear of betrayal hangs heavy in the air, a poison that seeps into every corner. You wonder what lies ahead for you, caught between the unknown and the terrible certainty of what the Inquisitors demand. When the door to your cell creaks open, your heart pounds fiercely in your chest. The Inquisitor steps inside, calm and methodical, his face an unreadable mask of authority. His eyes study you intently, searching for signs of weakness, for any hint of defiance. He speaks softly at first, a voice that carries the weight of judgment. He asks questions about faith, about forbidden books, about secret gatherings you may have attended. You know that every answer you give is weighed, twisted, used against you. The Inquisitor's presence is both terrifying and mesmerizing, a reminder that mercy is not in his nature. The instruments of torture await just beyond the chamber, hidden from view, but never far from your thoughts. The rack, with its cruel promise to stretch and tear, the Iron Maiden, a coffin of spikes, thumbscrews that grind bone and flesh. These devices are tools of confession, terrifying means to break the will and force compliance. You hear the screams from nearby cells, each one a chilling reminder of the fate that may await you. The sound pierces the silence, echoing down the stone halls like a dreadful symphony. You clutch your hands tightly, trying to steel your nerves against the rising tide of terror. Confession is the ultimate goal of the Inquisition. Whether true or fabricated, the words extracted become the weapon that extends their reach. You understand that resistance will only bring harsher punishment, yet the thought of betraying your beliefs, your family, your very soul fills you with anguish. The Inquisitors are masters of manipulation, knowing how to exploit fear, guilt, and desperation. They offer false promises of mercy in exchange for cooperation, weaving lies that trap the mind. You struggle to hold on to your truth, even as the darkness threatens to consume you. Outside the prison walls, the world is transformed by the Inquisition's relentless grip. Communities live in constant fear, neighbors eyeing one another with suspicion, friendships fraying under the strain of paranoia. The Church's power is absolute, its reach extending into every home and heart. The line between faith and fear blurs, and obedience becomes a survival tactic. You recall the stories of public trials and executions, spectacles designed to terrorize and control. The image of the condemned, bound and broken, displayed before jeering crowds, is seared into your mind, a grim warning to all who might dissent. Despite the overwhelming darkness, moments of humanity flicker through the despair. You see brief acts of kindness among prisoners, a shared morsel of bread, a whispered prayer, a comforting touch. These small gestures kindle a fragile flame of hope, a reminder that even in the bleakest places, the human spirit can endure. You hold on to these moments, cherishing them as lifelines in the storm. The bonds formed in suffering become a quiet rebellion against the cruelty imposed upon you. As the days drag on, your body weakens, but your mind sharpens. You learn to read the patterns of the inquisitors, to anticipate their moves, to hide your pain behind a mask of calm. The fear is a constant companion, yet it also fuels your resolve. You remind yourself that survival is not just a matter of the body, but of the will. Every breath you take is an act of defiance, every heartbeat a testament to your unbroken spirit. The path ahead remains uncertain, but you vow to face it with the courage that has carried you this far. Night falls, and the prison descends into eerie silence broken only by distant cries and the soft shuffle of footsteps. You lie on the cold floor, staring into the darkness, the weight of your chains pressing against you. The shadows seem to close in, but within you burns a steady light, a refusal to be extinguished. The Inquisition may claim your body, but your soul remains your own. In this dark place of fear and suffering, you find the strength to endure, to hold on to hope, and to dream of a world where justice and mercy prevail beyond the walls of torment. You wake slowly, the cold stone floor pressing into your aching back. The air in your cell is heavy with dampness and the stale scent of long confinement. Your hands are bound, the rough ropes biting into your wrists as a sharp reminder of your captivity. Outside the narrow window, a sliver of pale light seeps through the bars, barely touching the shadows that cling to the corners. The silence is thick, broken only by the distant echoes of footsteps and muffled voices. You try to steady your breathing, fighting the panic that threatens to overwhelm you. In this place, every sound carries a warning. Every moment is weighed with dread. Your mind drifts back to the moment of your arrest, the sudden knock at your door, harsh and unforgiving, followed by the appearance of men clad in dark robes, the agents of the Inquisition. Their eyes were cold and unyielding, their words sharp as swords, accusing you of crimes you cannot fully comprehend. They spoke of heresy and blasphemy, of forbidden texts and secret meetings, none of which you recall. Fear clenched your heart as you were dragged through the town, past silent faces peering from behind shuttered windows. The whispered rumors followed you like a shadow, branding you as a traitor to faith and crown. The world you knew shattered in that instant, replaced by a nightmare where trust was shattered and hope was scarce. Days blur into nights as the relentless routine of interrogation and torment begins. The Inquisitors arrive with their arsenal of instruments, tools designed to extract truth through pain. You have heard the tales whispered in the darkness, the rack, stretching limbs until joints crack. The Iron Maiden, a cage of spikes that promises death by slow agony. The thumbscrews grinding bone and flesh. These devices are more than mere torture. They are weapons of control crafted to break even the strongest spirit. The screams of those before you echo through the halls, a haunting chorus that seeps into your very soul. Interrogation is a battle of wills, where words are weapons and silence can be deadly. The inquisitors are patient and cunning, knowing how to exploit your fears and weaknesses. They offer false mercy in exchange for confession, twisting your thoughts until truth and lie become indistinguishable. You resist as best you can, but the relentless pressure wears down your defenses. The thought of betraying loved ones, of speaking falsehoods to save yourself, fills you with despair. Yet the promise of release, of ending the unbearable pain, pulls at you like a dark tide. Within the prison, the conditions are harsh and unforgiving. Food is scarce and often spoiled, barely enough to keep your strength from fading completely. Water is cold and rationed, a precious resource in this place of suffering. The cold seeps into your bones, the stone walls absorbing the chill and refusing to let it go. Sleep is a fleeting refuge, disturbed by nightmares and the ever-present fear of what the next day might bring. Your body weakens, but your mind clings desperately to fragments of hope, memories of a life before this nightmare. You are not alone in this darkness. Around you, other prisoners share your fate, some broken by pain, others hardened by despair. Their whispered prayers and cries mingle in the silence, creating a tapestry of suffering and resilience. You witness acts of kindness amidst the cruelty, a shared piece of stale bread, a comforting touch, a word of encouragement. These small gestures become lifelines, fragile threads connecting you to humanity in a place designed to strip it away. Outside the prison walls, the world is transformed by the reach of the Inquisition. Fear permeates every village and town, neighbors watching one another with suspicion, friendships dissolving under the weight of paranoia. The Church's power extends far beyond faith, twisting society with its relentless pursuit of control. Public trials and executions are grim spectacles designed not just to punish but to terrify. The image of the condemned, bound, and broken, displayed before jeering crowds, is etched into your mind, a warning to all who might dissent. Despite the overwhelming darkness, a flicker of defiance remains within you. You refuse to let the Inquisitors claim your soul, to bend you to their will. Each breath is an act of rebellion, each heartbeat a testament to your unbroken spirit. The road ahead is uncertain and fraught with peril, but you hold fast to the hope that beyond these walls lies a world where justice and mercy might prevail. Until then, you endure, a prisoner caught in the merciless grip of the Inquisition, trembling but unbowed. The cold stone beneath you seems to seep deeper into your bones with each passing hour. Your fingers are raw from the rough ropes that bind them, and your body aches from long hours spent on hard benches or standing in cramped cells. The flickering torchlight casts grotesque shadows on the damp walls, making every corner seem alive with unseen horrors. You wake to the echoes of footsteps, distant murmurs, and the occasional agonized scream that slices through the silence like a blade. The weight of despair presses heavily, but beneath it all, a quiet ember of resistance burns inside you. You remind yourself that the inquisitors want more than your body. They want your soul, and that is something they may never fully claim. Each day begins with the same grim ritual. You are dragged from your cell by the stern hands of the inquisitors, their faces masks of cold judgment. The chamber where you are brought is stark and foreboding. In the center stands an array of instruments, each designed with cruel precision to torment and break. The rack looms ominously, its ropes waiting to stretch and tear. The Iron Maiden sits silent but deadly, a cage of spikes meant to imprison and kill slowly. The thumbscrews glint coldly under the flickering lights, promising pain with every turn. Your heart pounds in your chest as you are forced to confront the very embodiment of fear and suffering. The inquisitors begin their questioning with a calm voice, almost soothing, but every word carries the threat of unimaginable pain. They ask of secret meetings, forbidden texts, and whispered heresies. They demand names of friends, family, and acquaintances who might share your supposed guilt. The weight of their accusations is crushing, and you realize that truth matters little in this place. What matters is confession, any confession, to satisfy the endless hunger of the Inquisition's machinery. You struggle to hold on to your memories, to protect those you love, but the relentless pressure begins to wear you down. Pain follows swiftly and without mercy. The inquisitors show no hesitation as they employ their tools, twisting limbs, crushing fingers, and stretching bodies beyond natural limits. The screams of others echo through the stone halls, a grim soundtrack to your own torment. Every nerve feels ablaze, and yet you cling desperately to consciousness, to the part of yourself that refuses to break. In those moments of agony, your mind drifts to memories of sunlight and laughter, of faces smiling in innocence. These flickers of light offer a fragile refuge from the darkness that threatens to consume you. Between sessions, you lie on the cold floor or the wooden bench, your body bruised and broken, your spirit battered but not defeated. The food is scant and tasteless, barely enough to keep the hunger at bay. Water is rationed sparingly, its coldness a sharp contrast to the burning pain within your flesh. Sleep is elusive, broken by nightmares and the gnawing fear of what is to come. Yet even in the depths of suffering, moments of humanity persist. Fellow prisoners share what little they have, offering whispered prayers or words of comfort. These small acts kindle a spark of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest places, compassion can survive. Outside, the shadow of the Inquisition looms large over the land. The people live in fear, eyes watching, ears listening for any hint of dissent. Friends turn suspicious, neighbors betray one another, and the line between truth and accusation blurs dangerously. Public executions serve as brutal reminders of the cost of defiance. The condemned stand bound and broken, their suffering on display as a warning to all. You recall tales of those who faced the flames or the gallows with stoic courage, their stories whispered in secret by those who still dared to hope. You ponder the nature of the inquisitors themselves. Are they monsters or men consumed by a twisted sense of duty? Their faces reveal little, but their actions speak volumes. They are instruments of a fearsome power, wielding pain and terror to maintain control. Yet even they are bound by rules and rituals, their cruelty tempered by a need to justify their actions in the eyes of their superiors. You realize that beneath the black robes and harsh judgments lie human souls, corrupted and hardened by the very system they serve. As the days drag on, your body weakens but your mind sharpens. You learn to mask your pain, to hide your fear behind a veil of silence. The inquisitors watch for signs of weakness, but you strive to remain unbroken. Every breath you take is a silent act of rebellion, every heartbeat a testament to your will to survive. You cling to the belief that beyond these walls lies a world where justice and mercy still exist, a world worth fighting for. This hope, fragile as it may be, sustains you through the endless nights and the horrors of each day. Night descends once more, wrapping the prison in shadows and silence. You lie on the cold stone floor, the echo of distant cries a haunting lullaby. Your body is battered, but your spirit endures. The Inquisition seeks to crush you, to bend you to its will, but within you burns a light that refuses to be extinguished. You hold fast to that flame, knowing that as long as it burns, you remain unbowed. In this place of fear and suffering, you find a strength deeper than pain, a courage born of hope, a defiance that no torment can destroy. You awaken once again to the cold and unforgiving walls that surround you. The faint light from a distant torch barely reaches your cell, casting weak shadows that seem to dance mockingly on the stone. Your body aches from the relentless days of torture and deprivation, every movement a reminder of the brutality inflicted upon you. Yet despite the pain, there is a stubborn flame inside, a refusal to surrender your truth, your identity, and the hope that someday this nightmare will end. You try to steady your breathing, feeling the rough texture of the ropes chafing your wrists, a constant reminder of your captivity and vulnerability. The hours stretch endlessly as you lie on the hard bench, memories of freedom and peace feeling like distant dreams. Outside, the prison pulses with the rhythm of suffering, the agonized cries, the whispered prayers, and the cold footsteps of the inquisitors. You have heard the stories of others before you, men and women broken by the merciless machinery of the Inquisition. Their confessions, whether true or false, have fueled the flames of persecution and the tightening grip of control. You wonder how many of those voices were silenced forever, how many truths were buried beneath lies born of torture and fear. When the door creaks open, you are pulled once more into the harsh light of interrogation. The inquisitors are relentless, their questions probing every corner of your mind and soul. They demand names, names of friends, family, even strangers, anyone who might be linked to the heresy they accuse you of. Each name spoken, willingly or under duress, is a dagger that wounds not only those named, but the bonds of trust that hold communities together. You struggle to protect the innocent, to hold onto your integrity, but the pressure mounts like a tidal wave, threatening to sweep away all resistance. The instruments of torture await with cruel patience. You have come to know each one, the rack that stretches and twists your limbs, the iron maiden that promises slow death, the thumbscrews that crush and grind with merciless efficiency. The pain is a language spoken without words, a brutal teacher that forces you to confront your own limits. You endure not because you are strong, but because you cling to something greater than yourself: hope, faith, or perhaps the sheer will to survive. In moments of agony, your mind escapes to memories of light and love, to the faces of those you hold dear. These recollections become your sanctuary, a shield against the darkness. Between sessions, the prison is a landscape of shadows and whispers. Fellow prisoners exchange silent glances and quiet words, sharing small acts of kindness that defy the cruelty surrounding them. A crust of stale bread passed in secret, a whispered prayer offered in solidarity, a touch that conveys understanding without words. These moments of humanity are fragile yet fierce, small sparks of rebellion against the dehumanizing force of the Inquisition. You hold on to them, knowing that in this place of despair they are lifelines to sanity and hope. Outside the stone walls, the world is gripped by fear and suspicion. The Inquisition's reach extends far beyond the prison, twisting the lives of entire communities. Neighbors watch each other with wary eyes. Friendships dissolve under the weight of paranoia, and families are torn apart by accusations and betrayals. Public trials become grim performances where innocence is often irrelevant and guilt is assumed. The image of the condemned, bound and broken before the jeering crowd, is etched deeply into the collective memory, a chilling reminder of the price of dissent. Yet even the inquisitors, with their cold faces and merciless methods, are not immune to the human condition. Behind the black robes and stern judgments lie men shaped by fear, ambition, and the corrupting influence of power. They operate within a system that demands obedience and ruthlessness, their cruelty both a weapon and a shield. In some moments, you catch glimpses of doubt or exhaustion in their eyes, fleeting cracks in the facade of authority. It is a reminder that the machinery of oppression is fueled by flawed humanity, not some unstoppable force. As days turn into weeks, your body grows weaker, but your mind sharpens. You learn to conceal your pain, to hide your fear behind a mask of silence and resilience. The inquisitors search for cracks, but you strive to remain unbroken. Every breath becomes an act of defiance, every heartbeat a testament to your enduring spirit. You cling to the belief that beyond these walls lies a world where justice and mercy prevail, a world where truth is not crushed beneath the weight of fear. Night descends, wrapping the prison in cold darkness. You lie on the stone floor, the faint echo of distant cries a haunting lullaby. Your body is battered, but your soul remains unyielding. The Inquisition seeks to extinguish your flame, to bend you to its will, but within you burns a light that refuses to be snuffed out. You hold fast to that light, knowing that as long as it flickers, you remain unbowed. In this place of fear and suffering, you find strength beyond pain, a courage born of hope, and an unbreakable will to survive. The cold stone beneath you presses relentlessly into your aching back as you slowly open your eyes to a dimly lit cell. The faint flicker of a distant torch casts moving shadows on the rough walls, their shapes twisting into ominous figures that seem to mock your helplessness. The air is thick and stale, heavy with the smell of damp earth and the lingering scent of fear. Every breath you take feels labored, weighed down by the uncertainty that hangs over you like a suffocating shroud. Though your body trembles with exhaustion and pain, your mind remains alert, clinging fiercely to the sliver of hope that refuses to be extinguished. The day begins, as it always does, with the sound of heavy footsteps echoing down the stone corridor, growing louder until the door to your cell swings open with a groan. The Inquisitor enters, his face a mask of stern authority, eyes cold and unyielding. He carries with him the chilling promise of interrogation, a ritual designed not merely to seek truth, but to break the spirit. His voice is measured and calm, each question deliberate, probing the depths of your memory and resolve. He asks of heresies and secret gatherings, of forbidden texts and whispered conspiracies. You answer as best you can, knowing that every word is scrutinized, twisted, and turned against you. The tools of torment await nearby, silent but menacing. The rack stands ready, its cruel mechanisms designed to stretch and tear, to rend flesh from bone in a slow and excruciating process. The Iron Maiden, a coffin of spikes, looms in the shadows, a grim reminder of the fate that awaits those who refuse to confess. Thumbscrews and other devices, small but vicious, promise sharp, unrelenting pain. The very sight of these instruments is enough to send a shiver down your spine, a forewarning of the agony to come. The screams of others, their voices breaking under the weight of torture, echo through the corridors, a haunting soundtrack to your own ordeal. Interrogation is a calculated dance of cruelty and cunning. The Inquisitor employs not only physical torment but psychological warfare, exploiting fear, guilt, and desperation. He offers false promises of mercy in exchange for confession, weaving lies that ensnare the mind. Each session leaves you weaker, the lines between reality and nightmare blurring as pain and fear take their toll. You fight to hold on to your truth, to protect your honor and those you love, but the relentless pressure threatens to shatter your very soul. Between the sessions of torment, the prison offers no respite. The food is meager and often spoiled, barely enough to sustain your dwindling strength. Water is rationed, its coldness a cruel contrast to the burning pain coursing through your body. Sleep is elusive, disturbed by nightmares and the ever-present dread of what the next day may bring. Your cellmates, some broken by their own suffering, whisper prayers and words of comfort, their solidarity a fragile beacon in the darkness. These small acts of kindness become lifelines, reminders of the humanity that still flickers amidst the cruelty. Outside these stone walls, the world is gripped by a pervasive fear. The Inquisition's reach extends beyond prisons and interrogation chambers, twisting communities into webs of suspicion and betrayal. Neighbors watch one another with wary eyes, friendships unravel under the strain of paranoia, and families are torn apart by accusations that can never be fully escaped. Public trials and executions serve as grim spectacles designed to terrorize and control, their horrors seared into the collective consciousness. The condemned stand broken and exposed before jeering crowds, their suffering a brutal lesson in obedience and fear. Amidst the oppression, moments of humanity persist. You witness small acts of rebellion, shared food, whispered encouragement, and silent prayers offered in secret. These gestures sustain your spirit, reminding you that even in the darkest places, compassion and hope endure. You grasp these moments tightly, drawing strength from the knowledge that you are not alone in this struggle, that others share your pain and your defiance. The inquisitors themselves are complex figures, shaped by the very system they uphold. Behind their cold exteriors lie men burdened by fear, ambition, and the corrupting influence of power. Their cruelty is both a weapon and a shield, a means to justify their actions and protect themselves from doubt. You catch fleeting glimpses of hesitation or weariness in their eyes, moments that reveal the fragile humanity beneath their robes. It is a stark reminder that the machinery of oppression is run by flawed individuals, not unstoppable forces. As the days blend into weeks, your body weakens but your mind sharpens. You learn to mask your pain, to hide your fear beneath a veil of silence and resolve. The inquisitors search for cracks in your armor, but you strive to remain unbroken. Every breath becomes an act of rebellion, every heartbeat a testament to your enduring spirit. You hold on to the belief that beyond these walls lies a world where justice and mercy prevail, a world worth fighting for. Night falls once more, and the prison settles into a heavy silence broken only by distant cries and the faint rustle of movement. You lie on the cold stone floor, the weight of your chains pressing against you. Your body is battered, but your soul remains unyielding. The Inquisition seeks to extinguish your flame, to bend you to its will, but within you burns a light that refuses to be snuffed out. You hold fast to that light, knowing that as long as it flickers, you remain unbowed. In this place of fear and suffering, you find a strength deeper than pain, a courage born of hope, and an unbreakable will to survive. The light of dawn barely reaches your cell as you awaken, the chill of the stone floor seeping into your bones. The room is suffused with a heavy silence, broken only by distant murmurs and the occasional clatter of chains echoing through the corridors. Your body aches with every movement, bruises and cuts a testament to the merciless ordeals endured. The ropes that bind your wrists are coarse and unforgiving, digging into your flesh and reminding you of your captivity. Despite the exhaustion and pain, your mind remains alert, clinging to the fragile thread of hope that you might survive this ordeal, that your spirit might endure where your body is tested. You recall the moment of your capture, the sudden knock at your door that shattered your world. Men cloaked in black entered with grim purpose, their faces stern and unyielding. They spoke of accusations too heavy to ignore, charges of heresy and blasphemy that you barely understood but could not deny. The walk through the town was a nightmare, made real silent faces behind shuttered windows, whispers that felt like daggers, the weight of a community turning against one of its own. The word heretic branded you, a mark of death in all but name. The familiar warmth of your home replaced by the cold embrace of stone and iron. The inquisitors are relentless. Each day they return with questions sharpened by suspicion and cruelty, probing your memories for inconsistencies and secrets. They demand names, friends, family, acquaintances, all to feed their insatiable hunger for control. You try to protect those you love, to guard the truth even as the pressure mounts. The instruments of torture stand silent in the corner, but speak louder than words. The rack promises to tear your limbs from your body. The Iron Maiden waits to imprison you in a coffin of spikes, and the thumbscrews are ready to crush bone and flesh alike. The screams of others echo through the halls, a grim reminder of the fate that may await. Pain becomes a language you learn to speak and endure. Each session leaves you weaker but not broken. You discover reserves of strength born from desperation and willpower. Your mind escapes to memories of light sunlit fields, laughter of loved ones, moments of peace before this nightmare. These fleeting images become your sanctuary, a place where your spirit can find rest even as your body is tortured. Between torments, you cling to the small acts of kindness from fellow prisoners, a shared crust of bread, a whispered prayer, a reassuring touch. These moments of humanity are lifelines, fragile yet fiercely protective. Beyond the prison walls, the shadow of the Inquisition darkens every corner of life. Fear permeates the air as neighbors watch each other with suspicion, friendships unravel, and families are torn apart by accusations and betrayal. Public trials become spectacles of terror where innocence is irrelevant and guilt assumed. The condemned stand bound and broken before crowds whose jeers are a chorus of dread and compliance. These displays serve not just as punishment but as warnings, tools to maintain a grip on power through fear. You reflect on the inquisitors themselves, men bound by duty but also corrupted by power and fear. Behind their stern masks lie souls burdened by the same vulnerabilities as yours. Their cruelty is both a shield and a weapon, a means to justify their actions and protect themselves from doubt. At times, you glimpse a flicker of hesitation or weariness in their eyes, fleeting moments that reveal the fragile humanity beneath the robes. It reminds you that the machinery of oppression is driven by flawed men, not unfeeling monsters. As time stretches on, your body weakens, but your mind sharpens. You learn to conceal your pain, to mask your fear beneath a facade of calm and resolve. The inquisitors search for cracks, but you strive to remain steadfast. Every breath is an act of defiance, every heartbeat a testament to your enduring spirit. You hold fast to the belief that beyond these walls lies a world where justice and mercy still exist, a world worth living for. Night descends again, and with it comes the oppressive silence of the prison. You lie on the cold stone floor, the weight of your chains pressing against you like a constant reminder of captivity. The distant cries of others create a haunting lullaby, their pain woven into the fabric of your own suffering. Your body is battered and broken, but your soul remains unbowed. The Inquisition may seek to extinguish your flame, but within you burns a light that refuses to die. You cling to that light, knowing that as long as it shines, you remain unbroken. In this place of fear and torment, you find a strength deeper than pain, a courage born of hope, and an unyielding will to survive. The first light of dawn barely touches the cold stone walls of your cell, yet it stirs something deep within a fragile hope that has refused to die despite the endless darkness. Your body aches, bruised and battered from the relentless torment you have endured, but your mind remains sharp, determined to hold on to whatever scraps of strength remain. The ropes around your wrists chafe painfully, a constant reminder of your captivity, yet you focus on the steady rhythm of your breath, grounding yourself in the present moment. In this place where fear reigns supreme, you cling to the smallest flicker of light, knowing that survival is as much about spirit as it is about flesh. Outside, the world continues in cruel indifference. The Inquisition's shadow stretches far beyond these prison walls, twisting communities into webs of suspicion and betrayal. Neighbors turn on neighbors. Whispers of heresy and blasphemy spread like wildfire, and no one is safe from the all-seeing eyes of those who wield power through fear. You think of the public trials, the spectacles where the condemned are paraded before jeering crowds, their confessions extracted through unspeakable pain. These events serve as grim reminders that the machinery of control is relentless, crushing any flicker of dissent beneath its heavy hand. Yet within this bleak reality, moments of humanity persist. You witness small acts of kindness, shared scraps of bread, a whispered prayer, a comforting hand on a trembling shoulder. These gestures become lifelines, fragile threads of connection that weave through the harshness, reminding you that you are not alone. The prisoners around you, though broken in body and spirit, share a quiet solidarity. Their stories, their suffering, and their courage become a tapestry of resilience, a silent rebellion against the dehumanizing force that seeks to erase them. The inquisitors return with their questions and their cruel instruments. Their voices are calm, almost detached, but each word carries the weight of judgment and the promise of pain. They demand names, secrets, confessions, anything to feed the insatiable hunger of the Inquisition. You steel yourself against the rising tide of fear, knowing that every answer you give could condemn another, yet the alternative is unthinkable. The torment is both physical and psychological, a relentless assault designed to shatter your will and bend you to their purpose. The rack looms in the corner, a sinister silhouette against the flickering torchlight. The thought of its cold wooden frame and tightening ropes fills you with dread, yet you prepare yourself to endure. Pain becomes a language you learn to speak, a test of endurance and spirit. Each moment of agony is tempered by the memories that sustain you, the warmth of sunlight on your face, the laughter of loved ones, the taste of freedom. These recollections are your sanctuary, a place where your soul finds refuge even as your body is broken. In the quiet moments between torments, you reflect on the nature of the inquisitors themselves. They are men shaped by fear and ambition, their cruelty both a weapon and a shield. Behind their stern masks lie souls burdened by the weight of their deeds and the demands of a system that brooks no mercy. You glimpse fleeting moments of doubt in their eyes, brief cracks in the facade of absolute authority. It is a reminder that even those who wield power are themselves trapped, bound by the chains of fear and obedience. Your body weakens, but your resolve hardens. You learn to conceal your pain, to mask your fear beneath a veil of silence and defiance. Every breath becomes a small act of rebellion. Every heartbeat a testament to your unbroken spirit. You cling to the hope that beyond these walls lies a world where justice and mercy still exist, a world worth fighting for. This hope is fragile but fierce, a light that guides you through the darkest nights. Night falls once more, wrapping the prison in shadows and silence. You lie on the cold floor, the weight of your chains pressing into your skin, a constant reminder of your captivity. The distant cries of others mingle with the whispering wind, creating a haunting lullaby. Your body is battered and bruised, but your soul remains unyielding. The Inquisition seeks to extinguish your flame, to bend you to its will, but within you burns a light that refuses to be snuffed out. You hold fast to that light, knowing that as long as it shines, you remain unbroken. In this place of fear and suffering, you find a strength deeper than pain, a courage born of hope, and an unyielding will to survive. The faint light of dawn barely touches the cold stone walls as you awaken, your body weary and bruised, yet your spirit holding firm against the relentless tide of suffering. The air is thick and heavy, filled with the lingering scent of damp earth and the faint traces of torches flickering somewhere deep within the prison's winding corridors. Every breath you take is a conscious effort, steadying yourself against the pain and the weight of uncertainty pressing down upon your mind. Though your hands remain bound and your body weak, your heart beats with a quiet defiance, refusing to be silenced by the cruelty that surrounds you. Outside your cell, the world spins on, oblivious to your torment, yet its shadow falls long and dark. The Inquisition's grip tightens over the land, sowing fear like seeds in every village and town. Whispers of heresy breed suspicion among neighbors. Friendships fracture under the strain of paranoia, and the very fabric of communities unravels beneath the weight of mistrust. Public executions are grim performances where justice is a mockery and mercy a forgotten word. The condemned are paraded like beasts before jeering crowds, their suffering etched into the collective memory as a warning to those who might dare dissent. You remember the stories told in hushed tones, the flames, the ropes, the blood spilled in the name of faith, and you steel yourself against the knowledge that your fate may be no different. Within these walls, moments of humanity still flicker like fragile flames against the darkness. Fellow prisoners offer what little they have, stale bread shared quietly, whispered prayers for strength, a touch of comfort in the cold and silence. These small acts of kindness become your sanctuary, reminders that even here, in the heart of despair, compassion endures. The faces around you are etched with pain and fear, yet also resilience and quiet courage. Their stories intertwine with yours, weaving a tapestry of endurance and hope that no amount of torture can unravel. The Inquisitors return with their measured voices and cold eyes, their questions as sharp as the instruments they wield. They seek not just confession, but control, demanding names and secrets to feed their ever-hungry machine of persecution. Each session drains you, twisting your thoughts and threatening to break your resolve. The rack waits silently, its ropes ready to stretch flesh and bone. The Iron Maiden promises a slow, merciless death, and the thumbscrews threaten to crush what remains of your strength. The screams of others echo like a chorus of despair, a cruel reminder of what lies ahead for those who resist. Pain becomes a language you understand all too well, a brutal teacher that strips away pretense and exposes the raw core of your being. Each agonizing moment tests the limits of your endurance, yet within that torment you find a strange clarity. Your mind retreats to memories of sunlight filtering through trees, the laughter of friends long gone, the gentle touch of a loved one. These recollections are your fortress, a refuge where your spirit can rest even as your body is pushed to the brink. You cling to these fragments of life beyond the walls, drawing strength from their warmth and light. The Inquisitors are not monsters born of darkness, but men ensnared by a system that demands obedience and cruelty. Behind their stoic faces lie fears and ambitions not unlike your own, their actions shaped by the corrosive power they wield and the need to justify their deeds. At times, you catch glimpses of doubt or weariness flickering in their eyes, fleeting moments that reveal the fragile humanity beneath the black robes. It is a stark reminder that the machinery of oppression is driven by flawed souls, trapped in roles they may no longer fully understand or control. Despite the endless suffering, your resolve remains unbroken. You learn to mask your pain, to hide your fear beneath a veneer of calm defiance. Every breath you take is an act of rebellion, every heartbeat a testament to your will to survive. You hold on to the hope that beyond these walls exists a world where justice is not a weapon but a shield, where mercy and truth guide the hands of those in power. This hope, fragile and flickering though it may be, is your light in the deepest darkness. Night falls once more, and the prison descends into a heavy silence punctuated only by distant cries and the soft shuffle of footsteps. You lie on the cold stone floor, the chains around your wrists a constant reminder of your captivity. Your body is battered and bruised, but your spirit remains fierce and unyielding. The Inquisition seeks to crush you, to break your soul, but within you burns a flame that refuses to be extinguished. You hold fast to that light, knowing that as long as it glows, you remain unbowed. In this place of fear and torment, you discover a strength beyond pain, a courage born of hope, and the unbreakable will to endure. The first light of dawn filters through the narrow window of your cell, casting a pale glow on the worn stone walls. You awaken slowly, muscles stiff but spirit unbroken. The endless nights of torment and fear have left their mark on your body, but deep within, a quiet strength remains. You breathe in the cold air, tasting the faint scent of damp earth mixed with the lingering smoke of distant fires. Outside, the world is waking, but here, time moves differently, each moment stretched thin by uncertainty and pain. Yet today feels different, as if a shift is stirring beyond these walls, a chance for change whispered on the morning breeze. The heavy footsteps approach, but instead of the usual grim-faced inquisitors, the guards wear an unfamiliar hesitance. The door creaks open slowly, revealing faces softer than before, eyes searching with a mix of sympathy and respect. They hand you simple clothing, rough but clean, and unbind the ropes that have held you captive for so long. Your wrists ache fiercely, but the relief is overwhelming. You rise unsteadily, feeling the unfamiliar sensation of freedom tingling through your limbs. The prison that once held you tight now feels like a fading nightmare, its grip loosening as you step into a world that has not forgotten you entirely. As you walk through the corridors, memories flood your mind, faces of those you left behind, the pain and courage of fellow prisoners, the whispered prayers shared in darkness. You realize that your ordeal was not suffered in vain. The stories of resilience and defiance have spread beyond these walls, stirring hearts and minds. The fear that once silenced voices is giving way to courage, and the machinery of the Inquisition is beginning to falter. You glimpse the faces of those who opposed the cruelty, who dared to speak of justice and mercy. Their courage, combined with your own endurance, has sparked a flame that cannot be easily extinguished. Outside, the sun rises over a land still scarred by fear but illuminated by hope. Villages once shrouded in silence now whisper stories of survival and resistance. Communities begin to rebuild trust, knitting together the frayed bonds torn by suspicion and betrayal. The public spectacles of punishment grow fewer as voices rise against the terror that once ruled with iron hands. You see the first signs of change, eyes no longer filled with fear but with determination, hands reaching out to heal rather than harm. It is a slow, fragile process, but it is real and undeniable. Your own path leads you beyond the prison gates, into a world transformed by the trials you and so many others endured. You carry the scars of your suffering, both seen and unseen, but also a profound understanding of the human spirit's capacity for resilience. The lessons of captivity, pain, fear, hope, and defiance have shaped you into something stronger than before. You are a living testament to the power of endurance and the unyielding quest for freedom. Your story, once whispered in shadow, now becomes a beacon, inspiring others to stand against oppression and to believe in the possibility of change. In the days that follow, you find yourself surrounded by those who share your vision, a community forged not by fear, but by solidarity and hope. Together, you work to rebuild a world where justice is guided by compassion, where mercy tempers judgment, and where the wounds of the past can begin to heal. The road is long and fraught with challenges, but the promise of a better future fuels your resolve. You know that the shadows of the Inquisition may linger, but they can no longer dominate the light that grows steadily across the land. At night, beneath a sky full of stars, you reflect on the journey that has brought you here. The memories of pain and fear remain, but they are no longer chains that bind you. Instead, they are threads woven into a tapestry of strength and courage. You feel a deep sense of peace, knowing that your suffering has meaning and that your endurance has contributed to a greater good. The life that once seemed lost in darkness now shines with the promise of dawn. You close your eyes and breathe deeply, the weight of the past lifting with each exhale. The world is far from perfect, but it is yours to shape. You are free to live, to love, and to build a future where fear no longer rules. The flame of hope burns brightly within you, a light that will guide you through whatever storms may come. You have survived the horrors of the Inquisition, and in doing so, you have become a symbol of resilience and the enduring power of the human spirit. Your story has reached its end, but its legacy will continue to inspire long after the final echo of suffering fades into history.